Everyone, welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. Kind of, almost, sort of. You are at the correct channel. The background is just different, and I am dressed a little different because I am here doing another collaboration with Avenue Studios up in New York. So, had to shout them out a little bit and say thanks for them for having me up, as well as if you want to check them out, this is like a little shout out for them too. You can check them out over at Avenue Studios on YouTube or Rumble. Both of those work. So there you go. But that's not what this video is about. This video is not about the collaboration. This video is about the finale of the Adventure Academia. Adventure Academia has completed its second season at the 7th episode. I'll do an epilogue video for y'all too, but as far as reflections on the 7th episode, that is what we're going to be talking about this time. First off, announcements as usual, always less than 5 minutes. You can time me. Here we go. The Inn of Planar Crossroads will be, of course, we're doing this collaboration with Avenue Studios, which is fun. It's always cool to be up here and visit them and then be able to record and do things and post that out for y'all. With other announcements, let me see, we're coming up towards November, so not in November, but near the end of December, we're going to be doing a whole Bloopersode week for the end of December, as well as doing our regular content release and our regular update, so you can tune in for that. That's going to be a whole bunch of videos that week, and you guys can watch those if you want to. I've got a lot of bloopers that I need to start putting out, because there's a whole bunch of bloopers. Because, imagine that. Lots of bloopers on people doing live recordings. I don't think that there's much else besides that. So, let me see. I will come over here. Yep, we're on the right place. So, episode 7. And if you remember, it was titled Down with the Dauntless. As far as the reflections for it, the kids had a lot of fun. They enjoyed themselves doing the battle. It was appropriately intense, I think. I'll say that. So it was appropriately intense for the fight. They did kind of have a little bit of last-day-itis at the end of co-op, the end of homeschool co-op for autumn. So that happened, but that's not crazy. That's not out of the ordinary. What was fun for them was that they got to roll some dice, and both of them were rolling both good and bad. Unfortunately, one of the girls in the older group always seemed to be rolling bad. She was not rolling particularly well all through the seasons, but this time she did make some successful rolls, and she felt good about that, so that's good. She was running Hildegard, so it was good that she got to have some successful rolls and be able to do some healing and improvements and things like that. Addie made sure that I would mention that he rolled movement to do some things in a challenge check, and he said he was anime dodging, like teleporting out of the way of the thrashing vines. So since I have a little extra time this time, I'll go through how I played that final battle out for y'all, and maybe that'll give you guys some ideas as well. As you might have noticed by now with my reflections, I am something of a fan of doing the challenge events and working those in quite a bit, because I think it adds a lot more of character when you're running things, especially when you're running things the way this has to be run. So what I did with this one is they started the battle off normally. I had them roll a d12, and with that d12, it gave me what turn the lair actions would happen. And these were, because there was 4 people, we did 4 rolls. They did roll 1, so something immediately happened, but then through the rest of the different turns, each time that turn was over, a lair action would happen. So at the end of the first turn, I believe Wilhelm was at the top. I did not have them roll for initiative again. We just left the initiatives the way they were. That way we could just jump right into the game. So we left the initiatives as they were. Wilhelm at the top, he did his thing, and then something happened with the lair. Each time a lair action came up, I treated it like a challenge event where they each could do something with their attributes that was thematically appropriate to, in this case, get out of the way of the thrashing vines as the power surged through and was pushing through those vines, trying to get to Grum as the mechanisms were supposed to work, but because Grum was detached, it couldn't, so it flailed around. And that's where Addy did his anime dodge and stuff like that, all over the place. And then most of the time they were successful at avoiding the damage in the older group. The younger group did take a little bit of damage, but that was good for the older group because they had more damage going in. I carried over the damage from earlier. I think this added to the tension that made it a bit more dire of a situation for the kids. They felt, oh, we're already damaged. Oh no, we've already got some of our hit points down. We need to do something about that. So it is good to say that they felt that, and that they started to use Hildegard more appropriately, because they were kind of, I don't know what games they play at home on like video games or something like that, but they were always ragging on the healer because she couldn't do anything. And I'm like, she's meant to be buffing. She's meant to be buffing people and making them better. That's what she's supposed to do. But anyway, it worked out. I worked out the Dragon's Bane as well, because we only had a few turns go by. That meant that Wilhelm only got 2 turns, and both times he activated Dragon's Bane, I believe. And when he activates Dragonbane, each time that check that he has to meet goes up. I'm debating whether I'm going to shift that to do a fortitude check to activate and then make your regular roll, or leave it to where the regular roll just has to meet this threshold and have the fortitude acting as a bar to even use Dragonbane. I kind of like the way it's already working, but I'll play with it because I like using fortitude and other attributes that aren't usually employed in rolls for rolls, but we'll have to see how that goes. So I'll keep y'all up to date on that, and if I ever stat out Dragonbane, you guys will be able to see it. I think that's most of what went on as far as the Dragon's Bane, as well as those first few turns. The damage that went through and how everything ended up playing out, they were able to damage Grum, but if this had gone on, it would have been a pretty tough fight, because the last thing I rolled for Grum was not very good. It was a multi-target, and it was a multi-target damaging attack, which he had abilities to do without any kind of disadvantage, which meant he could target more than one person at a time and keep them low if he could get them low, and if he could get the hit in. Thankfully for the kids, he didn't get the hit in, but if he was able to, and able to do it each turn, and they were having problems with their lair actions, things would have got real dicey real quick. But thankfully, spoilers for the epilogue, all the characters ended up surviving. Even though there was quite a bit of damage on different ones, there was still a survival that came through in the end. The good guys won out. All the good guys survived. Because you guys, I told the kids that I would kill off somebody if they didn't roll well enough or good enough. That could happen. And so I warned them about that the session before. So they knew that this was a serious session. It was either they did well or one of the characters could be gone. And I reminded them that I did that with Remigius. There was consequences to that challenge action that they were those challenge rolls they were rolling to escape the mine the last time. That played into Remigius, the severity of Remigius' incapacitation. So that was a reminder for them to, hey, take this a little bit more seriously than just let's make Hildegard make donuts or something like that, because she has I told them she had the Genesis boon, and then the younger group was like, let her make donuts, and I was like, oh, okay. The joke still went on, but thankfully they ended up using the make donuts with her protection that she made. I told them she could make a halo, which was she could make a halo shield. Told them that. So they got their donut in that way. That's what they thought. But that's mainly the reflections as far as that specific combat goes. When it comes to reflections as a whole, like the reflecting on the entirety of the season, I think that the majority of it went well and went as expected. I wasn't too terribly surprised or thrown off with what the kids ended up doing. That was mainly because, building off of last time, I had a more guided, I made it a more guided thing as far as what I was describing. I didn't leave it as open for them, because the first season, I was still getting used to the way of leaving it open for them to discover things or to try different things. That made it to where I ended up having to guide them along anyway, especially the younger group. I think now that we had this session here, this session where it was a bit more, this happens, then this happens, you are doing this, the group is doing this, instead of asking what the group is doing, this is what the group is doing. Because I could have, like with the cairn could be its own whole little adventure, because it's a dungeon they're having to delve into, basically. For those that are familiar with video games or tabletop games, it was a dungeon crawl, or could have been. But I knew better than to try and let a bunch of kids in school with 45 minutes each time to try and make it through a dungeon crawl in less than, I don't know, a full season. It'd take them 8 weeks to get through a dungeon crawl. So I knew that was not a good idea. But it still let us come through this as a series of events. So I think that is a lesson learned, and that it turned out well doing so for this type of setting. Now, if you're doing this at home, definitely spend the time. You can make the dungeon crawl if you want to, and you can have it more about wilderness survival, where they have to get through to each town and stuff like that. That's a lot that you can add to and expand upon yourself. And if we ever do this as a larger type of adventure path, I probably would do that and employ that myself. I think that if that does happen, that instead of upping it by level, we'll use experience point markers, because at least for Open Legend offers benefits for getting experience without having to go up in a level. Each time you get an experience point, you can do something with it if you want to, or you can save them up. And levels are more there to kind of check mark. We've had this much, and it's more of a GM tool than a player tool, really, in Open Legend. At least the way I see it. Anyway, that is one point. Another point is that, and I've been making some of these points along the way, that concise writing is both a boon and a bane. But it is both a boon and a bane, because the group is able to enjoy themselves and have fun with it. But I'm not getting to tell them all the interesting different things. Like, if we did expand it out, then I could tell them, well, this kingdom seems to have this running through the walls, or the gold that you see in the walls looks this certain way or that certain way, or the designs look this way or that way, and expound upon that. But that's the same kind of lament that every GM kind of eventually gets into, with the idea of, hey, I want to share this with my players, but my players aren't reading the lore books, or however you want to say that. So that's nothing new. I think with this, it has at least made me better at condensing it down to what the characters actually need to accomplish what's going on, and then flavor it after that. I do think, now that we've run some, that the main, that there's going to be a lot of those not ability checks, challenge events. Because combat's fun, but combat doesn't let everybody do something that they feel is meaningful. So these challenge events mixed in, I'm going to probably keep doing that. And I'm probably going to employ that D12 for turns on bosses or on mini bosses as something and play around with it. Because bosses in Open Legend usually get boss edges, which function kind of like legend points for bosses, kind of. But the lair action can add something in that is outside of the boss or is only tangentially attached to the boss, without the players feeling like, well, they got 2 turns. Why didn't we get 2 turns, or something like that? And instead of having to explain that to the kids, I could just say, well, this is what's happening with the lair or the world around you, or this is happening. So it makes it a little bit faster for that. But it also adds interesting things. You don't have to theme it around the boss. So I'll play with that. Y'all will get to see that happen in real time. Or semi-real time. I think that's what I've got for this time. I want to save some information and reflections for the epilogue, which will come out next week. I guess I didn't put this in announcements, so this will fall under final thoughts. Future Adam, who's putting the time markers in. Future thoughts, final thoughts. I think that I'm going to put some things in the epilogue, some extra details. If you guys want to see more lore for Atar and the realm that it is, and perhaps some of the truth behind it, which you will get to see a little bit in the upcoming release of the 1,000 subscriber game, which you can see on this channel, and which will star Dan from Avenue Studios. So this is his seat I'm sitting in. So there you go. But yeah, I think that's it. And if you want to see more lore on that, wait for the epilogue, as well as waiting for the 1,000 subscriber special to come out. All right. As always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right.
No bloopers. You nailed it.
Yeah, no bloopers. No bloopers this time, because usually the bloopers come around. Well, I mean, this will be a blooper. No real bloopers, because when usually the bloopers come from when I'm talking and trying to read off the script.
Yes.
So that's when all the bled-a-read-a-read-a-roos come in.
That's awesome. I do like that challenge.